Hey everyone, I'm back with another Pokemon Top 10, this time the inverse of what I did before. This one will be detailing my top 10 favorite Pokemon. Instead of being super negative like I was with the least favorites, now I get to spread some positivity and love, and honestly that'll feel better than crapping on Pokemon I dislike or hate. All of these Pokemon will have at least a minor story behind why they're my favorites, and as a heads up, some of the stories, especially number 1, are long. Before we begin, I must bring up a familiar face who made the honorable mentions last time. Charizard is not on this list. While he has now grown as of recent to be in my top 20 favorite Pokemon, and some other honorable mentions in that group include Jolteon, Rayquaza, Venusaur, Seviper, Phalanx, and Miraidon, this is a top 10, it will remain a top 10, and I simply cannot include all of them into a top 10. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Number 10, the Squirtle line. My favorite of the Kanto starters. Yes, I do mean the whole line. This is my top 10 list, so I don't care. I couldn't split them up, I love them all. This one was a complete turnaround that happened during the rear end of high school. Charizard was my favorite Kanto starter until this event happened, which led to a change of heart further upstream. There was this Pokemon Go add-on at the time where a little boy has this Squirtle plush and goes on to grow up and play Pokemon Go, where he now has a Squirtle as his Pokemon Go buddy. I'll admit the first few times I saw that ad, I cried. It touched me so much that I started to use a Squirtle whenever given the chance to use one, and I can also relate to Ash's Squirtle, or the Squirtle Squad in general, about just wanting someone to care about them and seeing their worth. I guess if I had to choose one of the original water turtles to get this spot, it would have to be Squirtle, but I love the whole line, and they still remain as my favorite Kanto starters. Number 9, Incineroar. This one is kind of a funny tale. When the Alola starters were revealed, my first instinct was to pick Rowlet, while Litten I was indifferent towards, and I hated Popplio. That would soon change when I heard Tricky Wee's song, In Your Spotlight, because it really spoke to me about struggles I was going through at the time with bullying. Popplio then became my favorite, and Rowlet took a back seat, but then that left poor Litten as my least favorite at the time. When the final evolutions were leaked, at first glance, I hated Incineroar. I thought it was horrible, and I expected it to be yet another firefighting type starter, as if we didn't already have enough of those. Once the types for the final evolutions were revealed, however, and I actually saw Incineroar's animations, he quickly grew on me. This Wrestler Cat is one of the best starters in the entire game in my opinion, in more than one way, and it also doesn't help that I am a huge cat person. I ended up choosing Popplio in Sun and Litten in Moon, as I had gotten both versions on Christmas of 2016 completely by accident. The irony is now that my favorite, when the base forms were revealed, is now easily my least favorite of the Alola starters, and my least favorite Final Evolve starter of that group is now my favorite. I love Litten and Torracat too, but Incineroar hands down deserves this spot over his pre-volves. Number 8, Lugia. This one's a bit shorter than Incineroar's story, but Lugia has rightfully earned its place on my top 10 favorites list. When I was 10, I would receive a game for Christmas that would become one of my favorites of all time, Pokemon Soul Silver. I loved that game immensely, and Lugia always struck me as this cool bird-like dragon, or dragon-like bird. I never got why it isn't a water type, but that did not change my opinion on Lugia at all. In fact, when I was little, it made me think it was even cooler, because at the time, I thought the type combination was very interesting for a Pokemon supposedly who ruled the ocean or something of the sort. Lugia is also just super cute to me for some reason. I mean, I love this thing. Fly high or swim low, Lugia. You deserve it. Number 7, Umbreon. Umbreon and I used to have a love-hate relationship just like Charizard and I once did, but after a while I just started to appreciate it more and more as time went on. I also found in my old Pokemon cards from when I was younger this super cool Umbreon holo card and fell in love with it probably all over again, as it must have been one of my favorite cards as a kid for me to hold on to it for so long. It's a cool dog, cat, fox thing that glows in the dark. Who couldn't love that? It may not be a flagship Pokemon, but it's iconic in its own way, and I'm glad to call Umbreon my favorite evolution. Also, its shiny is one of my favorites of all time as well. Umbreon is blessed. Number 6, Iron Jugulis. Well, here's a wild card for you all. I guarantee you've never seen a Paradox Pokemon besides maybe Roaring Moon or the box art legends for Scarlet and Violet on someone's top 10 favorites list. I can't say much on Iron Jugulis except I just think he's very cute and charming for a robot dragon. I also like Hydreigon, the Pokemon this one resembles, but I don't know why I just find Iron Jugulis cuter. It's actually one of the first Pokemon I went out of my way to shiny hunt when playing Violet. I'm not an avid shiny hunter anymore, but really wanted this guy. Took a couple days on and off, but no regrets. I don't care what anyone says about Iron Jugulis, I love it and that's all that matters to me. You can hate him all you want, but you won't change my opinion. Number 5, Zekrom. My favorite legendary Pokemon. This one is kind of funny as well, as when I was a kid, I really loved Zekrom and didn't care much for Reshiram. I still feel this way, but also really like Reshiram now too. Anyways, when I was a kid, I wanted white version so bad, but black version was the only one available at the store at the time, so I just dealt with it and took it home with me. After a few months of playing, I heard of these ways to get free shinies off the GTS using a DNS or something of the sort, and spent like 30 minutes setting up my DS to try this trick out on a shiny Zekrom giveaway video. It worked, and I remember literally crying tears of joy having my shiny Zekrom. I also ended up getting White 2 for Christmas, so I was a bit dejected at that, but my shiny Zekrom followed me there, and I was able to use him in that game as well. Eventually I stopped playing both games, and that shiny Zekrom is now lost to time somewhere, but I still continue to love Zekrom, and now I have a legit shiny Zekrom in my Violet version. A super cool electric dragon who can control thunderstorms and shit. What's not to love? I'm so proud to call Zekrom my favorite legendary Pokemon of all time. Number 4, Toxtricity. If you couldn't tell, I really like electric-type Pokemon. Anyways, this one didn't take a long time to become an all-time favorite. I remember when I first saw this Pokemon, I knew he'd be a favorite. What do you know, he is. His shiny's also really cool too. I think the colors are nice on the eyes. My preferred Toxtricity form is the low-key one, but Amped is still super cool, and I can remember back in senior year of high school drawing these fellas all the time. My Pokésona was, and still is, a shiny low-key Toxtricity named Biohazard. I don't have any recent art of him, but here's an older piece of him that I feel comfortable sharing. The Gigantamax form is also my favorite of all of them, with Duraludon and Lapras very close behind. He becomes a radio tower. That is so f***ing cool. This Pokemon is just really, really cool. I love him, and that will never change. Number 3, Xurkitree. Another wild card for you all, and another completely twisted opinion change. When the Ultra Beasts were first revealed, I thought Xurkitree was the worst of them by far. Just a bundle of wires that sorta looks like a tree. Could you get any more lazy, Game Freak? For a while, I really didn't like Xurkitree, but once I caught one, saw his animations and his leaked walk/run cycle, he just kept making me smile and laugh, and he very quickly grew on me because he sorta reminds me of myself. This misunderstood and very goofy entity that probably only wants a friend or two to understand him for what he really is. I love Xurkitree so much that even my main persona, Sparkplug, is themed after him. A Xurkitree cat hybrid creature. I couldn't have picked a better Pokemon to base my main persona off of, if I'm being honest. I love this goofy-ass bundle of wires so much, and I know that he'll be one of my favorites for the rest of my life. Number 2, Greninja. Yeah, what did you expect? Greninja is my favorite starter of all time. I know, predictable, but it's not only because his design is super cool or fan service, it's because frogs also happen to be my favorite animal. I knew from the moment Froakie was revealed, I was picking him no matter what he turned into, as a frog is a frog, and I will use the frog starter. Once Greninja was revealed, I knew I wouldn't have any regrets picking him. Also, that shiny, it's gotta be one of my favorites of all time too. He literally looks like a real-life ninja with that shiny, and they couldn't have made a better one for Greninja. I cannot stress this enough how frickin' cool a ninja frog was, and still is, to 11-year-old me. There was no way I wasn't picking Froakie, even if I ended up, say, liking Delphox better. Also, a lot of my usernames online revolved around Greninja at the time, and people in school would also call me Ninja at the time. It kind of just felt like destiny that Greninja would be my favorite starter of all time, and probably for the rest of my days. Unless an even cooler frog, or hell, a Morayyeel starter comes out, Greninja will continue to hold his crown on my number 2 spot. And finally, number 1, Porygon. Those who know me personally knew this was coming. There's a lot of reasons I love Porygon, but let's start from the top, shall we? In 2009, when I was 6, my whole life would be turned upside down when my mom found out my dad was cheating on her with the babysitter. After that day, our lives were miserable. During this crisis, I had my Nintendo DS Lite at the time, and I often turned to it for comfort, for solace. It was an escape for 6-year-old me from the cold, cruel truth that our lives would never be the same. One night, my mom, little brother, and I went out to Friendly's, and I brought my DS with me. As I was playing Pokemon Ranger, I came across a rather intriguing Pokemon. This Pokemon was called Porygon. Reminded me of a duck, but he seemed like he wasn't just a duck. He looked silly and weird. I captured him, and he became one of my follow buddies along with the Reggies eventually. I never knew how much this Pokemon would eventually mean to me at the time. Porygon did not immediately become my favorite, as Charizard and even Seviper have held the crown for my favorite Pokemon when I was quite a bit littler, but eventually he would grow on me more than any Pokemon ever did. I'd get him, or try to get him, in every Pokemon game I played. My quote-unquote ace in every game since Soul Silver has been a shiny Porygon. I just gradually fell in love with Porygon as a Pokemon. As weird as it sounds, he also serves as a guardian angel. Every time my life seems to be going bad, there's a Porygon somewhere that comes along to cheer me up. Whether in games, or in figure form, or now plush form, as I recently got the Porygon Sitting Cutie and named him Bit. Follow him on Instagram, here's his page. There he is. In one way or another, in the darkest times of my life, there's always seems to be a Porygon waiting to help me through my crisis. The first time he ever showed up in my life was during a crisis, as if he was sent to me as my guardian angel, my protector. Porygon has helped me through so much since I was a wee tot, and continues to do so. I'm so glad that this Pokemon has made such an impact on my life, and has been there for me when nobody else was. My guardian angel in the form of a polygonal duck. That's why Porygon will forever be my partner in crime, my best digital friend, my favorite Pokemon. Well, that's it. Sorry I got so personal with the Porygon story, but everyone always seems to side-eye me when I say Porygon's my favorite. Also, apologies for not getting this out sooner. I was supposed to finish this and upload it yesterday, but if you saw my community tab post, you'd know that the new Glass Animals song was released, and because of recent events, which I won't disclose here yet, it emotionally sent me into a tailspin. Anyways, enough on that. Now, I must ask you, who's your favorite Pokemon and why? I'd love to hear it down in the comments. This channel will not be exclusively Pokemon content yet, but if you like the video, you should drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more Pokemon content in the near future. Thank you all for watching, and I appreciate everyone who made it to the very end. See you next time!